Is it betrayal when love disguises itself as rebellion? I whispered the question to the cold marble floor, breaths fogging like a wounded animal's. In the dim glow of dawn, I slipped into my daughter's nursery, heart thundering so loud I feared she'd wake. The sight froze me, Lena, our maid, kneeling beside a cluster of open books, soft whispers curling around my girl's ears like forbidden lullabies in languages I couldn't place. My chest convulsed. How long had this gone on without my knowledge? The walls of our lavish Hillcrest home were supposed to guard her. Every polished surface, every gilt frame, a promise that nothing could harm her. Yet there she was, my tiny Aurora, eyes bright with curiosity, reciting syllables that felt like spells, rolling tongue twisters in Arabic, Mandarin, Russian. I had never taught her any of these. Her gentle smile as she mimicked Lena's accent cut through me like ice. She sounded like someone else entirely, a traveler lost in her own mind, chasing voices I'd never heard. I froze, unable to move, as if I'd stumbled into a dream where reality warped beneath my feet. That morning began in my private study, walls lined with first editions and artifacts from around the world, each piece a trophy of my success. But nothing there mattered anymore. My gaze locked onto the heavy wooden door of her nursery. The soft glow spilling out was an invitation to a secret I'd never imagined. I grabbed the carved ivory-handled letter opener from my desk. The blade was cold and sharp, reason enough to turn back. But I couldn't. I held my breath as I pushed the door open, every creak a drumbeat of panic. The room smelled of lavender and something I couldn't name, an undercurrent of jasmine mixed with dust and old pages. Through the half-light, I saw Lena's auburn hair in a messy knot, shoulders hunched over a worn Persian rug where my daughter sat cross-legged, books fanned around her like petals. It was beautiful and twisted, this tableau of innocence soaked in knowledge I hadn't sanctioned. The very books themselves were scattered across the rug, a Japanese primer, a Spanish fairy tale, a compilation of Farsi poetry. The pages were dog-eared, notes scribbled in margins. Lena must have been teaching for weeks, maybe months. I cleared my throat and everything cracked. Aurora looked up, her expression transitioning from delight to confusion, like a porcelain doll shattered and reassembled. Lena's head jerked up, eyes wide, lips pressed into a straight line. The moment I entered, a hush fell. It was as if the air had turned viscous, each particle weighing down on my chest. I dropped the letter opener onto the plush runner. It landed with a dull thud that sounded like a verdict. "Papa." Aurora's voice was soft, uncertain, but cloaked in a confidence I hadn't heard before, a lilt I didn't recognize. Lena rose slowly, smoothing her uniform. "Sir, good morning." Her voice was steady, but I noticed a flicker of fear in her hazel eyes. My mind raced. Had she been doing this to help my daughter, or was there something darker beneath her kindness? In the world of luxury I inhabited, servants seldom acted without gain. Was she seeking leverage? Had she recorded private moments? I took a measured breath, berating myself for the paranoid thoughts, but history had taught me mistrust. Trust didn't come easily when money built walls around your life. Aurora stood, clutching a thin dictionary, her fingers laced around it like a lifeline. The small girl was wearing a dress in soft pink lace, an outfit I'd chosen for her birthday, still spotless. But her eyes, they flicked between us, glossed with a mixture of fear and excitement. "Papa, watch," she murmured, flipping the little book to a page where Italian greetings were printed. "Quando sei felice, canta una canzone." Her pronunciation was tentative, accented, but unmistakable. She smiled at me as though she had unlocked a secret meant only for me. I felt something inside me unravel, the groomed veneer of my morning routine dissolving into shards of doubt and wonder. My breath nestled in my throat. I fought the urge to snatch the dictionary and hide it away forever, to erase this clandestine education from her world. Instead, I forced my voice to remain calm. "Lena, what is happening here?" I asked, fingers trembling slightly on the doorframe. My English sounded thin, brittle. "I'm teaching Aurora," Lena said, voice gentle but firm. "I've been helping her with languages for some time now. Why didn't you tell me?" Anger flashed, brief and white-hot, before guilt swept in. I was supposed to be her father. Shouldn't I have known every step of her learning? My mind spiraled back to nights when she lay awake, eyes flicking anxiously, frustrated that words escaped her. I blamed her silence on autism, another layer of separation between us. But now, these languages were a ladder, climbing out of her closed world and into ours. "I tried to," Lena whispered, lip quivering, "that you wouldn't have known if you just saw her poised demeanor. But you always seemed so consumed." Her bluntness stung. Was it true? In the pursuit of expanding my empire, a part of me had indeed drifted away. I glanced at Aurora, who was tapping her foot softly, humming a tune in Portuguese. My heart clenched at the sound, this melody of a place we had never visited, sung by a child who'd never felt its sun on her cheeks. The contrast between her innocence and the weight of my guilt formed a knot in my chest. Before I could respond, the door swung open behind me and my wife, Elena, appeared, her face pale as unfinished porcelain. She had been in the study, lost in papers and numbers, blind to the undercurrents swirling beneath our roof. "What's going on?" she demanded, eyes wide with alarm, hands clutching her silk robe. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Aurora turned to Elena, the soft glow of recognition in her eyes. "Mama, I can say this in 9 languages." Elena's gaze shot to the books, then back to Lena, disbelief warping her features. I felt a surge of protectiveness for Aurora mingled with shame. What had I missed? I stepped forward, brushing past my wife, and closed the door behind us, cutting off the possibility of outside ears. The hush that followed was thick enough to suffocate. In the mirrored wardrobe surface, I saw myself, dressed in a tailored suit, hair slicked back, expression tight. Yet in my eyes was a reflection I hadn't recognized, a father teetering on the edge of something he couldn't control. I realized then how fragile our gilded existence was, how one secret could tip the scales into chaos. Days earlier, everything was normal, at least as normal as it could be in the glass sand steel mansion perched on the edge of the city skyline. I woke to the hum of the city below, walked past gardeners trimming topiaries in the dawn light, and sipped my espresso in silence. My world was built on routines, board meetings, high-stakes negotiations, chauffeured commutes. My greatest anxieties had been slow returns on investments, not whispers in foreign tongues drifting through my daughter's room. Lena had arrived 2 months ago, recommended by a friend who insisted she was extraordinary. A quiet woman in her mid-20s, auburn hair pinned back, eyes that seemed always calculating but softened around children. I hired her reluctantly. I'd lost faith in most caregivers after a series of mistreatments and petty theft. Yet something about Lena's poise reassured Elena, who managed the home with ruthless efficiency. Lena was given strict orders: assist with Aurora's daily routine, help her with speech exercises, maintain the nursery's pristine order. Nothing more. Yet Lena saw what we didn't: Aurora's hunger for connection. Our daughter rarely spoke, autism had woven walls around her, and we, in our ignorance, didn't know how to breach them. We treated her like a fragile piece of glass, careful not to jostle or disturb her. We stayed in the safe zone of familiar toys and basic instructions, afraid that pushing too far would shatter her. But Lena didn't see danger, she saw possibility. Every evening, after my departure for the office and my wife's paperwork sessions, Lena would sit in the dim nursery light, her silhouette soft against the ivory wallpaper patterned with birds. She would pull out books printed in languages I'd never seen, speak in rhythms that felt alive and urgent. Aurora would sit beside her, knees pulled to her chest, eyes shining like twin stars. I had thought Lena was just reading bedtime stories, but instead she was weaving threads between my daughter's closed world and the vast universe beyond. On that first morning I caught them, Lena had been teaching Aurora her 9th language, ancient Greek. She placed a small figurine of Athena in Aurora's hand and taught her to say Chi Alpha Epsilon, Theta Epsilon with reverence. I watched my daughter's lips curve around the unfamiliar consonants as if she'd known them all along. A trembling awe gripped me. I felt a storm brewing in my chest. Why had I never suspected? How had I missed every clue? In those first frantic minutes after barging into the nursery, my mind flickered through 4 locations as if scanned by a frantic drone: the study where the letter opener lay forgotten, the nursery where betrayal and hope tangled together, the kitchen just beyond the hallway where leftover croissants sat under a glass dome, and the courtyard garden where the fountain whispered ancient lullabies. From the nursery threshold, I could see the marble floors of the main hallway gleaming in the early light. The kitchen, down 2 steps to the left, smelled faintly of stale coffee and yesterday's fruit, an everyday scent that suddenly felt alien. Beyond that, through the kitchen windows, the courtyard garden beckoned, its ornate fountain dancing in a cold morning haze. I pictured standing there later, letting cold water baptize my confusion, but that seemed impossible now. Elena's face, framed by a cascade of chestnut hair, was a mask of disbelief. She snapped out, "You knew." Her voice cracked like a whip. The question hung between us, accusing and raw. I opened my mouth, but all I could think was, I didn't know until this moment. I swallowed back guilt and anger at myself for being blind, anger at Lena for keeping secrets, and even anger at Aurora for hiding her brilliance. Lena stepped forward, hands clasped, shoulders squared as if she had prepared a speech. "Sir, I know you might be upset, but Aurora is extraordinary. She blossoms with languages. You see her struggle in English, but when she speaks Japanese, her eyes light up. When she sings French nursery rhymes, she laughs in a way I've never heard. I didn't want to intrude, but I couldn't watch her silence every day." Her words hit me like a thunderclap. I stared at the floor, thoughts colliding. Was Lena right? Had I been so focused on protecting Aurora that I kept her caged? My well-intentioned caution had become walls. If Lena hadn't acted in secrecy, my daughter might never have found her own voice. Elena crossed her arms, jaw clenched. You went behind our backs, she spat. We trusted you to care for her within our boundaries. Her gaze darted to Aurora, who was now running her small fingers along the tufted edge of the nursery armchair, humming a lullaby in Swahili. The contrast was almost surreal, a little girl lost in melody, a mother trembling with righteous indignation, and a father unmoored by revelation. I inhaled deeply, exhaling with the weight of a man who'd just glimpsed a hidden world. The moment stretched longer than time itself. My heartbeat felt like a ticking clock counting down to a terrible choice, to punish Lena for her deception or to forgive her for giving Aurora wings. Aurora broke the silence, her tone matter-of-fact. Papa, do you want to learn German? Her question was innocent, tinged with excitement, as if offering me a piece of a puzzle I hadn't known existed. I knelt before her, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Her big brown eyes, shining with trust, looked at me as though I held the key to a door she desperately wanted to open. Expectations crashed into me like waves, and for a moment I saw my daughter not as a silent occupant of this grand house, but as a hungry soul yearning for more. I reached out and gently lifted her hand, brushing soft curls from her forehead. Maybe, I managed to say, voice thick. Maybe yes. In that slice of time, the nursery transformed. The polished crib rails, the plush pastel rugs, and the soft glow of the oil lamp all became symbols, not of safety, but of potential waiting to be realized. Lena watched me, her expression unreadable but not defensive. It was as if she was daring me to step through the threshold of my own insecurities. Later, I found myself alone in the study, the door to the nursery closed behind me. The scent of old paper and ink lingered, comforting in a strange way. I sank into the high-backed leather chair and stared at the letter opener, its blade glinting in the morning sun. I thought about how language itself can be a weapon or a bridge, how a single word can cut deeper than any blade or build a shelter against the world. My life until now had been built on control, controlling markets, controlling deals, controlling the narrative of success. But here was a force I could not command, my daughter's own mind blossoming in secret corridors of talent. I realized that despite all my resources, I had never truly understood her. I had measured her by milestones other children hit, speech, socializing, routines, but I had never paused to see how her mind shaped reality differently. I rose and walked to the window overlooking the courtyard. The fountain's gentle spray caught the morning light, creating tiny rainbows. The water's rhythm seemed to mock my restlessness. I thought about the upcoming weeks, how I would confront our old patterns. We had to find a way to embrace this new chapter or risk losing the fragile trust that hung in the balance. Unknown to me, Lena watched from the nursery's half-open door. Her silhouette was a shadow on the wallpaper, but even in that darkness I sensed her hope and fear intertwined. She had defied my orders to guard my daughter's routine, and now everything had shifted. The world as I knew it was tilting, and I felt both terrified and exhilarated. This was the beginning of something that could either heal or break us all. In each space, my life fractured and reformed, unveiling how love, fear, and daring hope can coexist in a father's heart when confronted with a daughter's hidden gift. As I walked toward the nursery to face whatever came next, I carried a question burning behind my stern facade. Would I have the courage to let go of control and trust the unexpected magic blossoming in my child's mind? The house was silent, but inside me, the echoes were deafening. I paused at the nursery door, hand lingering on the polished brass knob as if touch alone could rip open more secrets. Through the narrow gap, I could see Aurora's bowed head, turning pages in a battered Turkish grammar book. Lena sat beside her, shoulders tense, eyes fixed on my daughter's lips as she repeated, Mahaba, nasal eyes? That sing-song lilt of a greeting felt like a guillotine cutting through my mind. For a moment, I feared if I entered the room I might shatter the fragile alchemy that hung between them. I inhaled, stepping in. The morning light, filtered through lace curtains, painted ghostly patterns on the hardwood floor, a labyrinth of flickering shadows. My boots made no sound on the rug, but the silence felt loaded as if the walls themselves held their breath. Aurora looked up, head tilting, eyelashes dipping like a curtain as she blinked. She smiled, a gentle curve that held a universe of trust. I forced a return smile, but it was brittle, like ice forming on a lake that would never thaw. Papa, she said, voice a soft promise. I nodded, though my stomach twisted. Lena closed the book quietly, placing it on the low wooden toy chest, its surface strewn with alphabet blocks and a half-finished puzzle of the earth. Good morning, sir, she said, as though greeting me at the threshold of a grand boardroom instead of a small girl's refuge. Her composure held, but there was a tremor in her throat, a silent quake I detected immediately. I cleared my throat. Is there a reason we're practicing Turkish at 8 in the morning? My tone was brusque, a flimsy shield against the guilt gnawing in my chest. Aurora's legs tucked beneath her, she clutched the book to her chest and looked to Lena, seeking permission before she spoke. I remembered when every word she uttered needed prompting, now her silence was a choice. The irony stung. Lena straightened her spine, then met my eyes directly. Sir, I thought it best to broaden her world. She adapts to sounds, her larynx moves naturally around these accents. Last week, she recited a poem in Hebrew. Yesterday, an Arabic nursery rhyme. Her words spilled out in a measured cadence, but beneath them lay an urgency I could almost taste, a desperate hope. I snatched the Turkish primer, flipping through the pages, scanning words I half recognized from business trips. How did she learn these so quickly? You haven't given her formal lessons, have you? Heat rose in my cheeks. I wanted to blame Lena for hiding this, but so much of the blame rested on me, on my absence, on the way I'd overlooked Aurora's silent world. She repeats what I model, Lena answered, calm but strained. I speak slowly, gently. She connects the sounds to pictures, then to meanings. Her memory, it's astonishing. She reached for the primer, placing it on my desk, her fingertips brushing mine. A spark of something, compassion, defiance, flared in her eyes. Please, sir? I didn't lie to hurt you. I saw her eager to learn and I knew you'd want this for her. I stared at the pages, Yvette beside a small drawing of a nodding head, hair under a cartoon shaking its finger. These simple words felt like keys to a cage. I closed the book forcefully as if the words might escape and scatter. I appreciate your efforts, Lena, but you overstepped. We have a structured program for Aurora. Speech therapists, occupational therapists, everything we've arranged. My voice echoed too loud in the small room. Lena's cheeks flushed. She looked at Aurora, who watched us with baffled curiosity. My heart thudded. The confrontation I'd feared settled over the room like a suffocating blanket. Lena held her gaze for a moment, the muscles in her jaw flickering. Then she nodded and rose as if surrendering to a verdict already rendered. She picked up her bag, an old leather satchel that didn't match her crisp uniform, and walked to the door. Her footsteps didn't falter. She paused with her hand on the knob. I'll be in the kitchen if you need me. When the door closed behind her, the air in the room shivered. I looked at Aurora, whose small shoulders trembled, uncertainty etched on her face. For a heartbeat, I wondered if I had frightened her. I knelt beside her and brushed a stray curl from her forehead. Papa is sorry, I whispered. But we can't just keep doing this, okay? She nodded, waving the book dismissively as though words themselves were mere playthings. Her gaze drifted to her crib where a plush giraffe lay toppled, its long neck arched like a silent cry. I left the nursery, stepping into the hallway where the polished wooden floors gleamed, reflecting my footsteps. The kitchen sat just beyond two marble-topped steps. As I descended, the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee and yesterday's toast tickled my senses. The morning sun slanted in through the windows, lighting up a plate with half-eaten croissants that someone, Lena, had left behind. I stared at them a moment, thinking how ordinary and everyday they seemed. Yet beneath that normality lay a bitter aftertaste. Lena had chosen to sit here, uninvited, after defying us. She stood at the counter, perched on a high stool, tying her hair into a loose braid. A porcelain cup hovered near her lips, steam curling from its rim in lazy spirals. She sipped without looking up. I felt a twinge of guilt. Her mere presence here, in a room so familiar, felt like a challenge. She had known I'd come, though I hadn't said a word. Her quiet readiness made me uneasy. I leaned against the counter. Lena. My voice caught. I swallowed. Why didn't you come to Elena or me before? I tried to keep my tone steady, but fatigue rattled my words. We might have discussed a way to integrate these lessons into her schedule. She turned, eyes glinting. Sir, when I first brought it up, Aurora froze. She pushed the therapists away. She only responded when I spoke her in French. And when I suggested she try the Hebrew book, she nearly leapt out of her skin with joy. She's a different child when she's exploring languages. I feared you wouldn't understand, her voice cracked, a soft fissure of emotion. She swallowed, steadied herself. I didn't want her gifts to wither because she was different. I pressed my fingers to my temples. The clatter of dishes in the sink behind her, china hitting metal, sounded jarring, like a warning bell. I closed my eyes, trying to push down the guilt. I'd been so preoccupied with acquisitions, expansions, climbing higher on that dizzy ladder of success that I'd become blind. My daughter's brilliance bloomed right in front of me, and I'd missed it. I understand, I finally said, though the words felt hollow. I wanted to reach out to embrace her courage. Instead, I turned and looked out the window at the courtyard garden. The fountain's water arced gracefully, catching flecks of light before splashing into the basin. The marble statue of a cherub in the center seemed to weep as droplets gleamed on its wings. That fountain had always been a symbol of serenity for me until now. I'd come to see it as a mirror of my ignorance, ripples hiding deeper currents beneath. Silence stretched between us, laden with unsaid apologies. I glanced back at Lena. Her eyes were fixed on the doorway to the nursery as if she expected something, maybe me to storm back in and forbid her presence. But I stayed rooted. I want you to coordinate with Elena, I said at last. If you feel these language sessions are so vital, let's find a way within our plan. My voice was firmer now. I needed to regain some semblance of authority. She nodded slowly, as if dampening a spark I had nearly snuffed. Later that day, I retreated to my study, seeking refuge in the familiar sanctuary of teak shelves and leather-bound volumes. The desk, an heirloom imported from Italy, held a thin layer of dust that I had neglected to remove. A file lay open, Aurora's latest speech evaluation, her words noted as hesitant, fragmented. The therapist's had marked performance as plateaued. I closed the folder, feeling nauseated. What if those evaluations had been wrong? Had I stifled her without knowing? I sank into the high-backed chair, sprawling my legs out, and stared at the Persian rug beneath, swirling patterns of crimson and indigo that felt dizzying. The room smelled of polished wood and old paper. My reflection in the window behind the desk showed me a man fractured. Adrenaline still thrummed through my veins, guilt pooled in my gut. On the desk, the Turkish primer rested next to a stack of unopened mail, invites to dinners, stock reports, yet each seemed suddenly trivial. I reached beneath the desk and pulled out a small, unmarked envelope, Aurora's latest drawing, I realized, from a month ago. A child's impression of a house, crooked lines, a red roof, stick figures. In the corner, scribbled words that looked like alphabets jumbled together. I touched the paper lightly, feeling its softness. My daughter's world had been invisible to me, yet here it was, scribbled in crayon and ink. A knock sounded at the door. I blinked, startled. It was Elena. Her face was tight, shoulders squared, as if she had practiced this confrontation in a mirror. I waved her in, sensing that the fragile unity we'd maintained since that morning was slipping. She closed the door behind her. Have you spoken with Lena? Her voice was low but taut. I nodded. She sighed, pulling a strand of hair behind her ear. I confronted her. She admits she did all this without our permission. I told her she leaves by tomorrow if we don't approve. A rush of anger pulsed through me. You can't ask her to leave, I said, voice sharper than intended. She's giving Aurora something we haven't. We can't just dismiss that. My face burned. It felt like my heart was about to burst from the cage of my ribs. Elena's eyes snapped. So you're okay with a maid teaching our daughter 9 languages without consulting us? She overstepped and now you want to reward her. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. You see progress in Aurora because Lena bypassed every professional we hired. We have specialists, eh? I know. I interrupted, clenching my fists on the armrests. But maybe the specialists are missing something. Lena found a path into Aurora's mind. Why are you so afraid to admit that? My voice was hoarse, desperate. I felt myself teetering on the edge of tears I refused to shed. If we expel Lena, we shut that path down. Elena stared at me, her jaw working. Then, softer, she whispered, I won't lose our daughter. Her eyes flicked away as if she was embarrassed to let me see the raw fear there. But I won't let her be taught in secret. She needs consistency. That house is our safe zone. I exhaled, leaning back. The weight of her words sank in, safe zone. For so long, I'd built walls to protect her. But now those walls felt like a cage, imprisoning her gift. What if we allow the lessons, but under our supervision? We hire an accredited tutor, someone with credentials in multilingual autism therapy. Elena's lips trembled. And risk it not working? Or risk it being too much for her? She folded her arms, trembling. We have to be careful or we lose her entirely. I reached out, but she backed away as if my touch might scorch her. The tension between us hung heavy. The polished mahogany floor felt like a crucible of choices, control or trust, fear or hope. I sensed that the next steps would determine everything for Aurora and for us as a family. That evening, as dusk settled, I found myself drawn to the courtyard garden. The fountain's spray caught the last amber rays of sunlight, throwing tiny prisms onto the cobblestones. I knelt on one of the marble benches, hands pressed against its cool surface, and stared at the soft ripple of water. The cherub statue gazed emptily at the sky, its expression unreadable. I wanted to believe that beneath the stillness, something benevolent watched over Aurora. Beyond the fountain, the kitchen's windows glowed faintly, the scene of earlier confrontations warmed by light and dish soap residue. Somewhere inside, Lena probably lingered, tidying the dishes I had ruffled. I wondered if she felt guilt or triumph that her secret was out. I thought about seeking her out, but the courtyard felt safer, a place where I could let the tension soak away in the falling darkness. I closed my eyes, breathing in the mingled scents of damp earth and jasmine. Aurora's laughter in the nursery earlier, bright, musical, echoed in my mind. She had sounded like a bird freed from a cage, singing unfamiliar songs. I realized then that my fears had built stronger walls than any obstacles in her path. If language was a bridge, I had doused it in doubt instead of walking over it with her. But trust was a delicate thing. How could I trust Lena after she lied? More importantly, how could I trust myself to guide my daughter, unearthing a gift that threatened to outpace my understanding? A sudden rustle behind me made me start. I turned toward the study window. It was ajar, odd, because I was certain I had closed it earlier. The curtain fluttered like a restless spirit. I rose slowly, heart pounding, and walked to the window. The pane was smeared with smudges, tiny handprints, as if a small child had pressed palms against the glass. But Aurora had been inside the house all day, and I was sure Lena wouldn't do such a thing. Cold fingers of dread snaked around my spine. Had someone looked in? Or had Aurora been watching me from outside? Either thought unsettled me. I wiped the smudge with my sleeve. The oils on my fingertip left a smear as I touched the damp glass. Outside, beyond the fountain, the courtyard was empty, no sign of boots, no footprints in the dew-laden stones. Yet I could still feel those phantom palms against my mind, as if her curiosity had extended beyond the safety of her room. A flash of movement caught my eye, a small piece of paper pinned to the cherub's pedestal by a single droplet of candle wax. I frowned. Why would someone leave a note there? I walked toward the fountain, each step echoing in the courtyard's hush. Luna moths flitted overhead, ancient wings brushing against the night air. I knelt, peeling the paper free. In neat, looping script, 6 words were written: she's learning more than we know. No signature. No date. Just that warning. My hands quivered, breath hitching. The message felt less like a note and more like a revelation and a threat. Learning more than we know. Was Lena behind this? Or someone else entirely, lurking in the shadows of my own castle? My mind raced. If Lena had felt judged and cornered, could she have sent this as a challenge or a plea? Yet her voice had never faltered even in confrontation. And why choose the cherub statue? The fountain was neutral territory where the world's gaze felt distant. The entire courtyard, once a place of calm, now felt charged with secrets. I crumpled the note, stuffing it into my pocket, and rose. The fountain's water caught my reflection, a man divided, holding fear in one hand and a spark of something else in the other, perhaps a flicker of resolve. I realized then that silent observers might already be circling Aurora's world. If that note was a warning, it meant our home was no longer a sanctuary. Night crept in as I returned to the study. The library lamp cast deep shadows across the room, making the books seem to lean in, listening. I sat at my desk, the crumpled note on top of Aurora's drawing. The Persian rug below whispered of distant deserts and forgotten empires. I remembered the 4 places of our fractured world: the nursery where innocence and revelation danced, the kitchen where confessions and accusations clashed, the courtyard where warnings took shape in ink and wax, and the study, where decisions weighed like anchors on a storm-tossed ship. My phone vibrated on the desk, Elena's name on the screen. I answered, voice tight. "Have you seen the note?" I asked. She paused, breath heavy. "Note," she echoed, confusion coloring her tone. "What note?" My pulse spiked. I realized she didn't know about the paper in the courtyard. A protective fury rose in me. How could I withhold this? But then, maybe I needed to understand it first, uncover its source before involving her. Never mind, I snapped too quickly. "It's nothing. Just sleep, Elena. I'll handle things here." I hung up before she could protest. The lie tasted foul, but I convinced myself it was for her sake. If the note was a dangerous sign, I had to keep it contained, study it before dragging her into a panic. I pushed Aurora's drawing aside and stared at the crumpled note, its edges curled like wounded wings. I smoothed it flat. Beneath the timid loops of ink, I sensed a promise: knowledge can be a blessing or a blade. I thought of my daughter's bright eyes peeling layers of sound from the Turkish primer, then dancing across the Hebrew letters like fireflies. She was walking a tightrope between worlds, and something or someone was watching. I refolded the note methodically and slipped it into a drawer. Then I turned my gaze back to Aurora's drawing, the crooked house with stick figure people, the jumble of alphabets in the corner. The more I stared, the more I saw the hidden language beneath the child's scrawl: hope, determination, an unspoken plea to be seen, truly seen. My hand hovered over the phone to call Lena, but I hesitated. Would she admit sending the note? Or would she recoil, fearing a severity she couldn't imagine? I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. The night air was heavy with jasmine and the distant hum of city traffic, far behind these marble gates. Somewhere between these scents lay the truth of what had begun in the nursery and now stretched out before us like an uncharted sea. I leaned back, fingertips brushing the desk's polished surface. Dawn would come soon, and with it, inevitable questions. How many languages had Aurora learned? How many worlds had she touched? And who else was waiting on the fringes of our perfection, ready to claim her gifts for their own purpose? As the lamp's glow flickered, I realized I had to choose, to keep building walls, tightening every lock and banishing Lena, or to tear them down, embrace the unknown, and forge a path with my daughter into territory I feared and craved in equal measure. The note's quiet warning pulsed in my thoughts. She's learning more than we know. It echoed like a heartbeat, urging me forward into the darkness, where uncertainty and possibility tangled together, and where the true test of a father's resolve would reveal itself. I woke before dawn, the house still asleep, as if the walls themselves were waiting for the next revelation. In the study, the desk lamp glowed faintly, illuminating the crumpled note still resting in the bottom drawer. I hesitated, finger hovering over the brass knob, reluctant to pry open a secret I didn't fully understand. The note's words pulsed in my mind. She's learning more than we know. What did that mean? Who watched us so closely? I closed my eyes and felt the hush of the house settle around me like a shifting tide. Footsteps in the hallway sounded distant, muffled by thick rugs. In my memory, I could already see the nursery door, half-lit by the morning's first light, waiting to reveal more of Aurora's hidden world. Part of me wanted to stay here, anchored by to fuel disinformation. If they used Aurora's accurate pronunciation, it could be a weapon. Stark cold clutched my heart. We can't let that happen. I glanced at Elena, whose lips were pressed into a determined line. We need answers. Who are they? What do they want? And how far will they go? I turned to Malik. Track every transaction linked to that shell company. Contact Interpol if you must. And interview every driver, delivery person, caterer in the past month. There must be someone who can lead us to the source. Malik nodded, rising to gather the documents. I'll have a full report in 12 hours. He left swiftly, leaving the three of us standing in the study's hushed glow. Elena held my arm. I feel so helpless, she whispered. Our daughter is so trusting, so open to the world. Her voice faltered. I just want her safe. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. We will keep her safe, I said, though I wasn't sure how. But we also can't cage her. We must guide her carefully. Lena exhaled. I have been in contact with Dr. Patel, Aurora's child therapist. If we bring her in, she can work with Aurora on establishing boundaries. Teach her when to speak and when not to. A child needs to know that sometimes adults with whispers in the night are dangerous, no matter how gentle their words. Elena nodded. Yes, and we need to stage a controlled language lesson, one we supervise, so that if these people come again, we will catch them. She turned to me, eyes fierce. We can't let them use Aurora as a tool. I squeezed her hand. Agreed. We'll set up a meeting with Dr. Patel tonight. And tomorrow we'll hold an open session in this house, recorded with cameras and only those invited. If these people show up, we'll know. Lena's expression shifted from relief to determination. I'll prepare lesson materials, she said. We'll make it look like a normal language showcase, something appealing enough to draw them in. And we'll be ready. Night fell, and the house thrummed with low tension. Guards paced the perimeter with silent resolve. Motion sensors glowed. Cameras watched every angle. In the nursery, Aurora lay asleep, breathing soft and even, dreaming in languages I could only imagine. A faint glow from the hallway lamp crept inside, illuminating her serene face. I knelt beside her bed, brushing a kiss across her forehead. Papa loves you, I whispered. Papa will protect you. She shifted, murmured "Danke, Papa," and settled deeper into sleep. The German word, thank you, felt like a benediction, and I felt tears sting my eyes. I rose, careful not to wake her, and headed to the living room where Elena and Lena waited, Dr. Patel by their side. The room was arranged with chairs facing a table laid with picture books, a showpiece of languages waiting to be unveiled. Dr. Patel, soft-spoken with a practiced warmth, greeted me with a nod. We'll help Aurora understand what's happening, she said. Kids relate to stories. We'll tell her a story about a child whose voice could open doors, and how some doors are safe, and some you must never open alone. Elena pinched her lips, her eyes raw. She's our daughter. We have to protect her, but also trust her. She glanced at Lena, who stood at the side, looking a mixture of apprehension and resolve. I exhaled. Tomorrow, when we host the lesson, I want every room sealed, no exits unmonitored. Cameras rolling, intercoms open. If anyone tries to reach Aurora, they'll do so under our watch. Dr. Patel nodded. Good. We'll create a safe space. We'll also coach Aurora on saying no. That's a big step. She turned to Lena. And you, as her tutor, will have a crucial role. You'll show her how to ask us for help if anyone approaches. Put words to fear. Lena's gaze flicked to me and Elena. I'll do it. Her voice was firm, unflinching. I held her eyes a moment, realizing how much trust she'd earned in a few tumultuous days. Thank you, I said quietly. Dawn arrived crisp and clear. The house held a taut hush, as though bracing itself. In the nursery, Aurora sprang awake, her hair a tousled halo. She bounded onto my bed, wrapping her arms around my neck. Papa, are the people coming today? She asked, eyes bright with curiosity, not fear. Her trust in the world, in me, cut deeper than any blade. I held her close. Yes, but only on our terms, sweetheart. You won't be alone. She nodded, hugging me tighter. Okay. I dressed Aurora in a simple white dress with embroidered alphabets along the hem, each letter a reminder of the power she wielded. Lena helped her braid her hair into 2 neat pigtails. Elena hovered, smoothing her dress, pressing a final kiss on her cheek. The 4 of us, Aurora, Elena, Lena, and me, stood in a circle, hands joined, a silent pact of protection and trust. At 10 o'clock, Dr. Patel ushered Aurora into the living room, where the picture books lay open. French farm animals, Arabic nursery rhymes, a Chinese folktale illustrated with calligraphy. Chairs lined the room with windows curtained but not sealed, let in natural light, but cameras discreetly stationed behind potted plants. Guards stood outside the hallway doors, their rifles silent but ready. Malik hovered by the intercom, eyes keen on each corridor. The lesson began with a gentle story, a little lamb traveling across mountains to find its shepherd, learning new words for each fold of land. Aurora's eyes widened at the tale, her small fingers tracing pictures as Dr. Patel guided her. Aurora, can you say mountain in English? And in German? Aurora complied, voice clear and confident. Mountain. Berg. Applause, pre-recorded audio played through hidden speakers, flooded the room. It was a cue, a signal. We were open for business, but under scrutiny. A heartbeat later, we heard the click of the grand front doors opening. Elena's heart stumbled. She glanced at me. I gave a subtle nod. Lena was at Aurora's side, a reassuring presence beneath the hush. A man in a gray suit and dark glasses stepped inside. He carried a leather briefcase and walked with a smooth precision. His eyes flicked over the room, lingering on the cameras. He stopped at the threshold, expression neutral. Aurora's gaze drifted toward him. He nodded, as though sharing a secret. I recognized the suit, too fine to be random, an international tailor known to outfit diplomats. The man moved toward the front row, unaffected by Malik's stance at the door. Elena took a half-step forward, but I placed a hand on her arm, holding her back. The man reached the center of the room and nodded to Aurora. Bonjour, mademoiselle, he said, voice polished and soft. Aurora's face lit with delight. Bonjour, monsieur. The man's lips curved in a polite smile. I heard you speak in many tongues. I would like you to teach me about your journeys. He flipped open his briefcase and removed a tablet, tapping it. I've studied languages for years, but my friends need your help to learn them as you do. We can offer many things: travel, knowledge, resources. My blood froze. He was positioning himself as a benefactor, but what resources did he promise? I noticed that the guards' hands gripped their rifles, knuckles white. Elena's nails sank into my arm. The quiet applause track ended, leaving a charged silence. Dr. Patel stepped forward. Thank you for coming, she said, voice calm. But Aurora's parents have decided she'll continue her lessons under their guidance and official tutors. We appreciate your interest. The man's eyes flicked to me. Mr. Davenport, he said smoothly, as though he already knew my name. Your daughter's gift is rare. With my associates, we can nurture her talent. He paused, lowering his voice so only I could hear. In a place where her voice can change the world. A flush of fear and anger surged through me. Get out of my house, I said, voice low but unyielding. He allowed a gentlemanly smile to bloom. Of course, Mr. Davenport. I meant no offense. I only wished to offer an alternative. He turned, walking toward the exit as though he had not been dismissed. The front doors closed behind him with a soft click. I exhaled, tension ringing from my body. Lock the doors, I barked. Malik's team moved to secure every entrance. Elena wrapped her arms around Aurora, chest rising and falling as tears slid down her cheeks. I approached the man's abandoned tablet on a side table, fingers trembling as I picked it up. On the screen glowed a single line of text. Nous reviendrons. We will return. I felt a chill. The lesson had been a trap, an invitation to watch, to study, to lure. But we had been prepared. The trust we had rebuilt among the four of us held firm. In the days that followed, the siege lifted as quickly as it had descended. Surveillance of the house intensified, Interpol joined our search, and the shell companies evaporated like mist. Malik reported that the gray-suited man was part of a clandestine network seeking linguistic assets for propaganda efforts. Without Aurora's cooperation, they vanished into the shadows. But our family knew the threat remained. We adjusted to a new rhythm. Language lessons continued under Dr. Patel's watchful eye, with Lena at the helm. Elena and I attended every session, learning right beside Aurora. French songs, Turkish rhymes, Mandarin folktales. Aurora's eyes brightened as she guided us through each syllable, delighting in our stumbles. It was a gift to witness her confidence bloom, and a reminder of how fragile brilliance can be. One afternoon, as I watched from the study window, Aurora chattered in Spanish to Lena, pointing at a book of Diego Rivera paintings. Her voice flowed, lilting with joy. I realized how far she had come from the silent child she once was. The nursery, now filled with vibrant posters of countries and alphabets, no longer felt like a prison but a launchpad. Elena joined me, leaning against my shoulder. Look at her, she whispered, voice soft with wonder. She's unstoppable. I pressed a kiss to her temple. She is. But beneath my commitment lay a quiet vow, to guard her gift, and to trust that love, more than any fortress, would keep her safe. That night, I walked through the nursery one last time before bed. The globe in the corner spun on its axis, casting blurred continents across the walls. Aurora lay asleep, her eyelids fluttering as she mumbled Russian lullabies, a melody meant for her dreams. The Turkish blanket fell from her bed, pooling at her feet like a crumpled flag of courage. I knelt beside her, brushing my lips across her forehead. Sweet dreams, my dear, I whispered. May your paths be yours alone. In the study, I retrieved the two notes, the one under the cherub and the one Aurora had delivered. I placed them side by side, staring at the inked phrases. Time reveals hidden truth. Every word is a door. Protect them. We had learned both lessons. Some doors must remain closed, and time would strip away illusions. In that room of polished wood and leather-bound books, I felt a stillness that signaled the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The voices of unseen watchers might linger, but the house was now more than brick and marble. It was a fortress of love, of vigilance, and of trust. Lena, a guardian now fully welcomed into our circle, sat quietly by the door, a silhouette of unwavering loyalty. Elena, my partner in fear and hope, slept down the hall, her breathing even, trusting the lock on her door. And Aurora, my daughter, slept in her bed, dreaming in languages I could only begin to understand. As I turned off the lamp, the nursery plunged into darkness, soft and safe. I left the house, stepping into the corridor where all our lives had been upended. Somewhere beyond the walls, the world waited, vast and unknowable, filled with tongues and tales. But tonight, within these walls, a father's vow echoed in the silence. Whatever doors my daughter chose to open, I would stand guard, ready to shield her brilliance from those who sought to turn her words into weapons. And in that promise lay the true power of love, more enduring, more unbreakable than any language or threat.